Support comes from BECU, a member-owned credit union putting people over profit, offering financial services and support to the community with access to local financial centers, over 30,000 ATMs, and online resources at becu.org. Federally insured by NCUA.
Hey, good morning. It's Patricia Murphy. It's Monday again. This is Seattle Now. Good masks are easier than ever to get a hold of, just in time for the mandates to start going away. Keep them handy, though. Our guest today says we could be in for another surge, and the masks will continue to come and go. More on that in a minute. But first, let's get you caught up. Just 2 weeks left in Seattle's eviction moratorium. It was set to expire today. On Friday, Mayor Harrell extended it through the end of the month, but that's the last time it'll be renewed. Harrell pointed to declining COVID cases, and he said he also heard from landlords who said the moratorium has hurt them financially. Thousands of renters say they're behind on rent. The mayor says rental assistance would be coming soon from state and local governments. Keep an eye on your credit if you've got a professional or business license with the state. Officials are in the process of notifying 650,000 Washingtonians whose information was compromised in a data breach. The theft was detected last month and disclosed last week. It exposed personal data and active, expired, revoked, or suspended licenses for most of the professions and businesses that require state licensing. And today's most famous Washingtonian is NFL champion Cooper Kupp. Kupp was born and raised in Yakima and played college ball for Eastern Washington. Yesterday, the 28-year-old LA Rams wide receiver was named Super Bowl MVP. Congratulations, Cooper Kupp. We'll forget about that Seahawks-Rams rivalry for just a minute. No trouble getting a hold of masks these days. My car is full of them. They're even giving them away for free at Bartell. All this just in time for states around the country to start dropping the mask mandates, including here in Washington. Governor Inslee announced he'll let the requirement to wear a mask at large outdoor events expire at the end of the week. And he seems ready to drop the state's indoor mask mandate soon, too. Things are definitely going to be changing, that's for sure. Ali Mokdad is here with some perspective. He's the Chief Strategy Officer of Population Health at the University of Washington and a former senior epidemiologist with the CDC. Ali, thank you for taking the time. Good to have you back.
My pleasure.
So it might sound flip, but this is actually a serious question. How likely is it that we're going to be putting masks back on in 2 months?
It's possible, but not in 2 months. We're expecting a surge sometimes in summer, simply because of waning immunity from both vaccines and infection, and this usually takes about 5 to 6 months. Leaving it to the people right now would be the right thing to do, simply because the infection rate in our community is very low.
Okay, the infection rate is low, which is good information for me as someone who's walking around, but how should I interpret it if I'm worried that you're not wearing a mask and I think you should be?
It's not about what people are doing around you. It's more likely about the circulation of the virus in the community. So if you live in a community where the circulation of the virus is very low, you shouldn't be worried if somebody is wearing a mask or not, because the chances of you getting infected from that person is very low.
And, you know, what you're saying is true for some people. Psychologically, hearing the governor say our mask mandate will be lifted, to them means masks are over. But there are some people who will not be comfortable with this. And I wonder how they should be feeling about the mask mandate.
Well, people should decide if they want to wear a mask, and they should be allowed to do so. I personally will be wearing a mask for a while, especially next winter as well. So we need to leave it up to the people to decide. It's not confusing. In my opinion, we need to tell the public why we are saying no more masks and give a metric for that. Base our decision on science and let the public know we may have to change it simply because of this metric is going up. You and I look in the morning at the weather, and if it is 40, we're going to put a heavy jacket on. If it is 70, maybe not. So exactly, we need to let the public know that we need to be aware of what's happening around us. And yes, For the coming months, we don't need a mask, but in the future, we may.
All right. So it sounds like we now live in a world where we're going to have to dip in and out of embracing masks as part of our lives, it sounds like.
Exactly, because the pandemic phase has ended and we are moving into an endemic phase, and we need to look at what's happening in our own community, and based on that, put a mask on and go back to physical distancing. But what we're looking at right now is very encouraging. We have low infections. Still in our state, we need a couple of weeks to get there. But in most of the country, we are at a very low level of infection, and we can ditch some of these mandates.
The governor has signaled that he's ready to lift the mask mandates in schools, possibly. The state superintendent has already said that he thinks the decision for having kids mask up at school should go back to local public health authorities. How are you thinking about that? You think that's a good idea?
It's confusing, quite honestly. We need, again, to set a standard and give a metric for why we need and when we need to say no more mask mandates in school. Just tell them what metric they should use in order to make that decision. Are we looking at 3 weeks of continuous decline in cases? Are we looking at your community about the number of people being admitted to a hospital on a daily basis? What is the metric that you are using to tell me it's green out there? And then I will keep an eye on it. If it's going up again, I should be also concerned and I will put my mask on. But you need to let the public know what metrics you are using.
You know, you're a scientist and this all sounds great. But again, I keep coming back to the psychology of this. I can just see this becoming very dramatic and polarizing, this taking down of the mask mandates and how people will react to each other in public. I've already heard someone talking about how an immunocompromised person who was pumping gas and was told by somebody to just take their mask off. People are not necessarily kind to each other, regardless of the choice they're making.
I've been told to take my mask off. I mean, it happened to a lot of us. But right now, we are in a very good position. And we need to assure the public that we are moving into the right direction. Look at it right now. People in Washington are looking around them, and they're hearing that every country in Europe is ditching the mask mandate and the mandates. Most states in the U.S. are moving into that direction. We owe it to the public. Instead of keeping them confused, we owe it to the public to come and tell them, look, what we are seeing right now is good. And that's why we are making this decision. And we are keeping an eye on the data and surveillance in order to update this decision as we go. But I look at it differently. In my opinion, it will relieve a lot of pressure and stress on the public. 1. 2, it also signals for all of us, let's go back to our new normal. Let's, empty the chips in our port and send the products to our stores. Let's go back and open the businesses. It's very important for us to have that sense of we're going to the normal. It's the beginning of the end. It's not the end. And we need to remain vigilant. But it's the beginning of the end. And we need to let the public know it's the beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end or the beginning of the new beginning, Ali Mokdad.
Exactly.
It might be a little too soon for this, but in hindsight, I wonder if you think mandates worked. People are just so complicated, and no matter what we did, maybe this just would have been exactly the same way.
No, mandates have saved a lot of lives. And let's be clear, this pandemic, we had 3 phases when it comes to these mandates. The first year, 2020, we didn't have a vaccine. 2021, we started having a vaccine. We didn't have enough and we were rolling it out. Right now, we have plenty of vaccine and we have a different variant. We really needed these mandates in 2020 in order to save lives and buy us time and buy scientists time to develop a vaccine. We needed these mandates in 2021 because we had different variants and not all people were vaccinated or boosted. In 2022 with Omicron, we're in a different position, and these mandates right now are not as needed as before.
Are we going to be nimble enough with our science to get people back into masks quickly enough?
I hope so. CDC needs to empower states and work with states in order to get the data on time and release the data on time. We have some work to do to improve our surveillance system. We have looked throughout this pandemic, unfortunately, at countries like Israel, Qatar, and the UK in order to get data. We have sometimes in the coming months to get our act together. And yes, we have to be nimble.
This is what concerns me, Ali, is that, you know, the history of the pandemic and the information and the misinformation. I mean, I have a cabinet full of tests, a car full of masks, and now we're all ready to unwind this. It feels a little ironic at this point.
It doesn't in a way. Remember, we are dealing with Omicron. This variant spread so fast, infected 50 to 60% of us in a very short time. Between the infections and the vaccination, we are in a very good place right now. Many of us have some kind of immunity against this virus, and that's why we are revising these guidelines. Somebody like me who's been telling you throughout this pandemic, wear a mask, watch your distance, wash your hands, is now coming and telling everybody, you know, these mask mandates are not needed from now on.
All right, Ali Mokdad, before I let you go, Omicron, is it likely the last big thing for a while? Because, again, my anxious brain has to check in with you before I let you go.
It's going to be with us for a long time, yes. COVID-19 is not over, will still be here. Most likely it will become a seasonal virus. We will take a vaccine for it, like flu, and we'll modify this vaccine depending on the variant that's circulating.
All right, I'll keep my masks handy. Ali Mokdad, really appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Seattle Now. Jason Pagano produced today's show. Matt Jorgensen does our theme music. I'm Patricia Murphy. Have a good day.